They told you the war was out there in the world, in the economy, in politics, in people who betrayed you. But the battlefield has always been within. And the most dangerous war is the one where you don't even know who the enemy is. You wake up every day to a mind that's already talking, already judging, already doubting, already whispering your limits before you've even stood up. And you never stop to ask, whose voice is that? Because it's not yours, not the real you, not the voice that was born with you, wild, curious, sovereign, unbreakable. That voice was buried beneath 1,000 others. The voice of the teacher who told you to sit down. The voice of the parent who couldn't love what they didn't understand. The voice of society that measured your worth in silence, obedience, and conformity. The voice of religion, of media, of broken people projecting their brokenness onto your mirror. And now you live in a haunted mind. You carry ghosts in your head. Whispers of failure, of shame, of never enough. You believe they are your thoughts, but they are inherited fears, passed down like curses from generations that never heal. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This isn't fate. This is programming, and it's time to unlearn it. Because the real you, the eternal you, is not afraid, not confused, not small. That voice inside you that says run, that says hide, that says stay quiet, that voice was planted and you keep watering it. But you were never meant to be a garden for other people's weeds. You were meant to be wildfire, uncontrollable, unapologetic, uncaged. The thoughts you hear are not the problem. The belief that they belong to you is. Not every voice in your head is yours. And you need to know the difference fast. Because if you don't, you'll build your life around the wrong identity. You'll climb ladders leaning on walls that don't lead home. You'll marry people who mirror your trauma, not your truth. You'll take jobs that feed your ego but starve your soul. You'll settle. You'll shrink. And you'll smile while doing it. Because the voice said, you should be grateful for crumbs. That voice is a liar. And the first step to freedom is confrontation. Mindset. Your mindset is not a motivational poster. It's not a weekend seminar or an Instagram quote. It is your operating system. And most people's systems are corrupted. They run on scarcity, on shame, on the idea that success must come through suffering, that love must come with sacrifice, that joy must be earned. But that's not mindset, that's mental slavery. Jung warned us, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Why? Because if you face your soul, you also face your lies, your compromises. The masks you've worn for so long, you've forgotten what your face looks like. Changing your mindset is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about uninstalling the beliefs that were never yours to carry. It's about burning the scripts and writing your own story in your own blood with your own hand. That is the rebirth. And it's painful because the ego will scream. The false voices will fight. They will say, who do you think you are? They will say, you've changed. Yes, you have. Because you finally decided to stop hosting parasites in your mind. You stopped being the echo of someone else's trauma. You stopped being the puppet of expectations that have nothing to do with your purpose. You stopped being available to the voice that profits off your fear. Belief. If mindset is the soil, belief is the root. And most of your beliefs were planted in you, not chosen by you. You didn't come into this world believing you were too much or not enough. You learned that. Someone taught you to be ashamed of your fire, to dim your genius, to apologize for your presence. They told you to color inside the lines of a life that was never drawn for your kind of soul. Belief is powerful because it doesn't ask for proof. It creates it. Whatever you believe becomes the lens you wear. You'll find evidence for anything your belief system tells you. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll sabotage every gift you touch. If you believe the world is cruel, you'll never see kindness when it knocks. If you believe you're broken, you'll only attract people who confirm that narrative. So the question is not what's true. The question is, what do you believe and who taught you to believe it? If the answer is pain, then it's time to rewire the system, not with positive thinking, but with brutal honesty, with clarity. Clarity. You cannot heal what you won't see. You cannot change what you won't name. Clarity is not comfort, it's confrontation. It's sitting with yourself in the dark and saying, I am not okay, but I am not broken. I am not perfect, but I am powerful. I have listened to lies, but I will not obey them anymore. Clarity is cutting through the noise until only your voice remains. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of culture, not the voice of the person who tried to break you and called it love. Clarity is sacred violence. It kills illusions so truth can breathe. And when you are clear, you stop begging for permission. You stop outsourcing your decisions. You stop explaining your boundaries. You realize you don't owe the world your peace, you owe it to yourself first. Vision. You cannot build what you cannot see. And most people don't lack potential, they lack vision. They can't see themselves as free, so they stay in cages. They can't see themselves as loved, so they chase crumbs. They can't see themselves as leaders, so they follow anything loud enough. Your vision is the architecture of your future. It's not fantasy, it's frequency. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are willing to become. You don't get the life you fantasize about in secret. You get the one you fight for in silence. The one you build with discipline. Discipline is the language of self-respect. The proof that you are no longer negotiating with the voices that want you to stay small. Discipline doesn't say, I feel like it. Discipline says, I decided. And decisions rewrite destinies. Discipline creates momentum. Momentum creates identity. And identity is how you break the loop of your past. Action. Healing is not a thought. It's not a journal entry or a meditation app. It's movement. Your body holds your trauma. So your soul demands you move. Out of the room. Out of the relationship. Out of the identity that no longer fits. You don't think your way out. You act your way out. Even if your legs shake. Even if your hands tremble. Even if the voice in your head screams louder than ever. Move anyway. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It's rebellion in the presence of it. And when you move, when you speak, when you decide, when you refuse to sit quietly anymore, that's when the false voices begin to die. That's when the real voice, the original one, the ancient one returns. Not the loudest voice, the deepest one. The one that doesn't shout but shakes the ground when it whispers. Gratitude isn't weakness. It isn't soft. It isn't passive. Gratitude is weaponry when it's forged in pain. It's the roar that says, even after all that tried to bury me, I still found something sacred in the dirt. It's a refusal to let bitterness become your identity. Most people think gratitude is about comfort. It's not. It's about clarity. The ability to say, this didn't go how I wanted, but it went how I needed. That heartbreak taught me boundaries. That failure taught me focus. That silence taught me to speak. Gratitude is not approval of your suffering. is the authority you claim when you rise from it. When you're grateful, you take the blade out of your own hand. You stop stabbing yourself with what happened. You stop reliving the same chapter and pretending you're stuck. No, you're not stuck. You're just attached. But when you can bless the lesson and release the wound, you break the chain. You exit the loop. You become unshakable. And once you stop needing life to go your way to be powerful, you become undefeatable. Adaptability. The ones who survive aren't always the smartest or the strongest. They're the most adaptive. The ego resists change, but the soul evolves through it. Every collapse, every detour, every betrayal, it's initiation. Life isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to shape you. Break the parts of you that were never real. So what is real can finally breathe. You will not win this life by clinging. You will not reach peace by controlling. You will not find purpose by forcing. You find it when you flow with the fire. You find it when you let the old version of you die without grieving its funeral. You find it when you pivot boldly, not desperately. Don't be loyal to a version of you that no longer exists. Don't be addicted to an identity that was built from fear. Adaptability is the art of becoming who the moment requires, without losing who you truly are. It's transformation without betrayal, evolution with integrity, movement with meaning. You don't outmuscle the storm. You outgrow the version of you who was afraid of it. Resilience. Resilience isn't toughness. It's not numbness. It's not pretending everything is fine. It's remembering your essence when everything around you forgets it. It's standing in the ruins of what you thought you needed and realizing, I'm still here, and I still want more. Resilience is spiritual rebellion. It's choosing to love again after betrayal, to try again after failure, to trust yourself again after you once ignored your own intuition. You do not build resilience by avoiding the fire. You build it by walking through it awake, not begging for rescue, not waiting for someone to save you, but becoming the force that no longer asks for permission to survive. Resilience says, I heard the voice that told me to give up. I heard the silence when no one checked in. I heard the shame when I failed. And I still showed up, not because I had to, because I chose to. That's power no one can take. Learning. The mind that thinks it knows everything is dead. The soul that is hungry for truth is alive. Learning is not about being right. It's about being real, curious, open, teachable. Most people don't learn, they defend. They defend their limitations. They defend their suffering. They defend the voices in their head because they've mistaken them for truth. But true learning, it's dismantling. It's the courage to say, maybe I was wrong. Maybe there's more. Maybe the version of reality I've been living was just survival, not freedom. Learning is not academic. It's emotional. It's spiritual. It's experiential. You learn who you are not by being it for too long. You learn what you don't want by chasing it until it breaks you. You learn what you deserve by being denied it enough times to finally claim it without apology. And when you commit to learning, you commit to becoming, not fixing yourself, unfolding yourself. Integration, healing, is not just knowing, it's integrating. It's the embodiment of wisdom. You can quote Jung, you can meditate, you can attend retreats and read books, but if you go home and betray yourself again, none of it matters. Knowledge is potential. Integration is power. You integrate when your actions start matching your insights. You integrate when you no longer abandon yourself to be accepted. You integrate when your no is louder than your fear of rejection. You integrate when your boundaries don't require explanations. And integration is not a moment. It's a lifestyle, a devotion, a sacred promise to never go back to the self you had to survive as. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be honest enough to walk in the direction of your truth, even if it terrifies you, because that is where your power is buried. And finally, awakening. There will come a moment when you no longer recognize the voice in your head, because it no longer speaks fear, no longer echoes shame, no longer drips with the venom of people who never saw your worth. It speaks fire. It speaks vision. It speaks truth. You will wake up one day and the noise will be gone. Not because the world is quieter, but because you are stronger. You stopped mistaking every voice for your own. You stopped giving access to thoughts that weren't rooted in your highest self. You stopped bowing to ghosts. And in their absence, you heard something new. You, the real you. Not the programmed one, not the scared one, not the one who traded freedom for safety, but the you that was forged in fire, the one that remembers why you came here, the one that doesn't just survive the dark, the one who builds light inside of it. So listen closely. Not every voice in your head is yours. And the moment you realize that, you stop obeying, you start becoming, and the world will never be the same again. It starts quietly, not with a declaration, not with an argument, not with fireworks or farewell letters. It starts with a whisper that says, this is no longer me. At first, you doubt it. You shake it off. You smile when you want to scream. You nod when your soul is shaking its head. Because the idea of walking away from everything you once called home, even if it's killing you, feels like treason. But deep down, you already know. There's a version of you that existed only to keep the peace, to be palatable, to be liked, to be understood. And now, that version is dying. Not because you're angry, not because you're bitter, but because something in you has outgrown the cage it used to call safe. Outgrowing people isn't about superiority. It's about alignment. The person you're becoming no longer fits in the rooms where silence was survival, where shrinking was love, where your boundaries were negotiated for convenience. And you don't need to explain it, because real evolution never announces itself. It simply moves. And when you move from soul, from clarity, from deep-rooted conviction, the people who only knew how to love your dysfunction will feel it. They'll feel the shift, not because you said anything, but because you stopped apologizing. You stopped laughing at jokes that belittle you. You stopped dimming your light just to soothe their insecurities. You stopped being the emotional contortionist who bends just to be invited. They won't say it, but they'll sense it. Your freedom offends them, not because it's wrong, but because it reminds them of every place in their own life where they chose comfort over truth. Syphoria is the psychological rebirth that comes when the soul finally takes the wheel. And rebirth is messy, unapologetic, raw. It doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't wait for your social circle to approve. It breaks through like a storm you didn't ask for and leaves behind clarity that no longer needs permission. Syphoria isn't the crisis. It's the collapse of everything falls. And when that collapse begins, people around you will panic. Not because you're breaking, but because you're breaking free. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, that you've become too much or not enough. But what they're really saying is, I can't control you anymore. You've outgrown the dynamic where you carry the emotional weight of relationships built on imbalance, where you say yes to things that slowly kill you, where your silence is mistaken for agreement. No more. You're not angry. You're awake. Mindset is no longer a buzzword. It's your battlefield. Because the biggest war you'll ever fight is the one inside your head. The one between the you that they trained and the you that's trying to break out. And to win that war, you must get comfortable with discomfort. Because growth is uncomfortable. Because leaving people behind is painful. Because becoming someone they no longer recognize feels like grief and liberation colliding in your chest. But still, you rise. You shift. You recalibrate. You do the work in silence, and you let the results speak without volume. Because those who are truly evolving don't need to convince anyone, they just become. And becoming, by nature, creates distance, not out of bitterness, but because frequency does not lie. The deeper you go within, the quieter you become around those who live on the surface. Belief is the soil where you plant your future. Not beliefs handed to you. Not beliefs inherited from wounded ancestors. Not beliefs whispered by broken systems. Your beliefs, the ones you earn, the ones you carve from your own fire, the ones you prove not with words, but with the way you move. And as your beliefs shift, so will your reality. You'll start seeing differently. You'll stop chasing people who require a diluted version of you to stay. You'll stop proving yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Because belief gives birth to clarity. And clarity is lethal to relationships built on confusion. You'll feel it in your bones when something no longer fits. And this time, you won't talk yourself out of it. You'll just walk, calmly, silently, with dignity. Because growth doesn't always require confrontation. Sometimes it just requires you to keep moving forward without flinching. Clarity sharpens you. It doesn't make you louder. It makes you cleaner. You don't argue when you're clear. You don't over-explain. You don't try to drag people with you who were never meant to go. You just embody the truth and let your energy do the talking. Some will be drawn closer. Some will drift away. Let both happen. Because clarity creates separation. It separates what's real from what's rehearsed. It separates mutual growth from emotional dependency. It separates those who celebrate your becoming from those who only tolerated your staying small. And you're done being tolerated. You weren't born to be digestible. You were born to be undeniable. Purpose doesn't arrive in a lightning strike. It reveals itself through subtraction. When the noise fades, when the pretending stops, when the people who drained your energy no longer have access to it, that's when you begin to feel it. A quiet pulse beneath the surface of everything you thought mattered. A steady rhythm calling you towards something deeper, not louder, but truer. Purpose doesn't ask you to become someone else. It demands you strip away everything you were never meant to carry. The roles, the personas, the borrowed beliefs and counterfeit dreams, until what's left is you. Raw, unapologetic, and sovereign. And when you start living from that place, you become disruptive. Not because you're trying to be, but because presence built in purpose exposes everything around it that is false. People who benefited from your self-abandonment will feel it first. They'll flinch at your boundaries. They'll resist your clarity. They'll accuse you of being selfish when you finally choose yourself. But let them speak. Because nothing screams insecurity louder than someone offended by your healing. Discipline is your declaration of self-respect. It's not about restriction. It's about remembering what matters and acting like it matters. Every time you get up, when it would be easier to sleep, every time you say no, when your past would have said yes. Every time you honor your own energy instead of giving it away for scraps of validation, you are reclaiming territory. Discipline is not for the externally motivated. It's for the internally convicted. And conviction doesn't shout, it walks with weight. That weight silences excuses. That weight clears the room. That weight creates space between you and people who only knew how to love you when you needed them. But now you don't need. You chose, and choosing is dangerous because it means you can walk away without looking back. Action is the bridge between your intention and your becoming. It's the space where the soul gets tested, where your vision is no longer a concept but a contract. Every time you move, even when you're uncertain, every time you create, even when no one is watching, every time you speak, even when your voice shakes, you are casting a vote for the future you refuse to abandon. And that kind of movement doesn't need an audience. It needs alignment, because when you are aligned, the applause becomes irrelevant and the noise becomes background, and your power becomes quietly inevitable. This is how you outgrow people without saying a word. You keep choosing action over explanation, direction over distraction, embodiment over justification. You let your decisions build a distance, and one day they look around and realize you're no longer walking beside them. You didn't run. You didn't shout. You simply rose. Gratitude becomes the compass, not for what they gave you, but for what they showed you. Every betrayal showed you your worth. Every dismissal sharpened your direction. Every empty conversation clarified what you never tolerate again. You don't regret outgrowing them. You honor them and you release them. Because gratitude doesn't mean staying. It means seeing clearly without staying stuck. You thank the bridge for getting you across, then you stop living on it. You don't burn it with rage. You let it dissolve in clarity. Because real growth doesn't create enemies. It simply removes access. Resilience is not about staying in the fire. It's about becoming fire, unapologetic, focused, impossible to manipulate. You don't fold because someone else can't handle your evolution. You don't explain your silence. You don't overcompensate for your clarity. You let it be what it is and you walk with your head high. Because people who are threatened by your growth were never loyal to your truth, only to your comfort. And you no longer trade your peace for belonging. You no longer contort yourself to be loved. You no longer bleed quietly just to keep the room calm. You rise loudly by saying nothing. And your silence becomes revolution. Identity is not who you've been. It's who you choose to remain when everything false has fallen away. It is not fixed. It is not inherited. It is not static. It's a living, breathing contract with your soul, one that is rewritten every time you act in alignment with the truth that you no longer need to prove. When you let go of needing to be liked, you find peace. When you let go of needing to be understood, you find freedom. When you let go of needing to be anything other than real, you become untouchable. Not because nothing can reach you, but because nothing can distort you anymore. This is the silent power that shakes a room. Not the ego, not the performance, not the image, but the presence of someone who has made peace with themselves so completely that they no longer shrink for the comfort of others. You want to outgrow people without saying a word? Become so grounded in your becoming that explaining feels like regression. Become so rooted in your vision that validation feels irrelevant. Become so secure in your inner world that external noise becomes background music. Because when you finally meet a version of yourself who no longer negotiates identity for inclusion, You meet the one they can't predict, can't define, can't manipulate. That version of you, they don't explain anymore. They embody. You don't need to fight to be seen. You don't need to prove your evolution. You don't need to defend your distance. You are not distant, you are elevated. You are not cold, you are clear. You are not silent, you are sovereign. And those who can't reach you were never meant to walk with this version of you. Let them misunderstand. Let them gossip. Let them say, you've changed, and smile, because you did. You stopped rehearsing your worth in rooms that had no mirrors. You stopped showing up as the watered-down version of yourself just to be tolerated. You stopped sacrificing your peace for conversations that never deserved your presence. You didn't leave with noise. You didn't leave with a scene. You outgrew them in silence. Because real transformation doesn't beg to be witnessed. It moves without permission. Now you walk different. With weight, with rhythm, with a gravity that only those who've done the inner work can recognize. You don't chase energy, you attract with frequency. You don't seek answers, you carry clarity. You don't cling to love, you radiate wholeness. And as you continue rising, you realize this journey was never about losing people. It was about finding yourself so deeply that you could no longer stay small for anyone. It was about shedding the skin of performance. It was about choosing peace over proximity. It was about letting go of those who only knew how to hold the broken you. And now there's no need to say goodbye, because silence is louder than any closure they expected. Your presence speaks for itself now. It says, I love you, but I'm not shrinking for you. I wish you well, but I no longer bend to be understood. I'm still here, but I'm not the same. And that is how you outgrow people without ever saying a word.